Good afternoon, and here are today's tropics for September 23rd, 2019. Please note, I'm not a meteorologist, and this video is just a collection of my thoughts and opinions about the storms I'm talking about. And for any decision making, please consult the National Hurricane Center, your local officials, or your National Weather Service office. So first we have Tropical Depression Karen. It was just during the last Fast Track update at about 2 or 3 p.m. EDT today was downgraded to 30 knots because it's been relatively disorganized. You might see a little center here. It's about here right now. It's a bit harder to see with the night coming in. But you can see, yeah, there is a weak but relatively well-defined surface low. And we're not too sure if it's closed yet. It's definitely closed to storm relatively, but if you mean for Earth relative closed circulation, we'll have to see on the new reconnaissance pass that's coming out right now into Karen, whether it is closed on this west and southwest side, because you want those like Earth relative northerlies, northwesterlies if the storm is moving in that kind of direction as it is now, as it's coming up near towards Puerto Rico. So if it's not close here, that means it's probably just a strong tropical wave, though still it will end up having impacts whether or not it's a tropical cyclone in Puerto Rico. You can see the convection here, that could cause flooding and a lot of rain, so that it's not like even if this is a wave, it can still have impacts. You can see that there's very strong shear out of the northeast. There's this outflow here. This is from Jerry, and it's coming right into the circulation and really keeping all the convection to the southwest of Karen Center. You can also see some drier air in the form of these outflow boundaries out here. This is a sign that there is dry air, as they are caused by downdrafts because the thunderstorms are getting choked out by drier air, and this tends to bring that down to the surface, which kind of makes the problem even worse, and also weakens the vortex, as this sinking air causes localized pressure rises due to that piling up of air, which causes that more like anticyclonic torque, which basically what that does is puts pressure on the vortex to rotate in the opposite direction that it already is, and it raises the pressure. Basically, this weakens the tropical cyclone, so it's kind of like a 1-2 punch right now. You've got the dry air and you've got the shear, so definitely a hostile environment, and Karen is going to have a hard time until it gets north of the islands. If we look at the water vapor, it's pretty clear what is causing the shear. There's some upper troughing at the very northwest corner of this plot. See, it's pretty dry. There's some orange here, so the mid-level water vapor doesn't usually get this warm unless there's very dry air. So we see this upper trough here. Downstream of that, there's this upper ridge for about here, but you can see it's not quite aligned with Karen, like there was one with Jerry that was also not aligned very well. And you can see what that's doing. It's the flow on the southwest or southeastern side here is causing the northeasterly flow here, and very strong too, and that's causing a lot of shear, which is displacing that convection. So you can see the source quite well in the water vapor imagery. If we look at the track, you can see where it's going. It's likely to affect Puerto Rico right here and the Virgin Islands. They have a tropical storm warning despite the tropical depression status. This is because it's only 5 miles an hour away from that status. It can easily re-strengthen quickly and cause tropical storm force winds. But the main issue right now isn't going to be the winds. It's going to be the rain, especially since it's disorganized. So there's potential for heavy rain and possibly flooding. So if you're in these areas, just be prepared for any of this, because that is the main really threat here. It's not the wind. You can see that, yeah, it's getting curved out, or at least partially, by the same trough that's expected to take Jerry out to sea, or near Bermuda, but generally out to sea. But you can see that it really slows down towards the end of the week as the trough kind of moves too far east to really affect it, and a ridge starts to build in. There has been some model guidance that would suggested it would move quite briskly westward after these 5 days, because of very strong ridge. They've kind of backed off on that a little bit, and there's some guidance that says it might stall near this area. And then there's strength too, because there is a distinct possibility, quite large actually, that Karen just dissipates into a tropical wave, and that also affects track, as it's much shallower, and then it can even be like absorbed by Jerry if it's close enough. So it's even certain in the next 3 days, because it just really depends what happens with the trough. How strong is Karen at this point? How strong is the ridge? And so there's a lot of factors in here. So this is definitely not a very confident forecast. It's just because there's so much uncertainty in these few days, as with most storms in a slow move, in a weak steering environment, because then you have small changes that can lead to larger ones down the road. And also, again, this intensity is also uncertain, because it depends on what it does by getting out once it gets out of the Caribbean and the unfavorable conditions. So there's a lot of variables here, and we don't know many of them yet. So we'll have to see once towards closer to the end of the week what is really going on, and hopefully this forecast won't be as uncertain as it is right now. If we take a look at Jerry, you can see it's getting sheared quite badly. There's a low-level center right here, kind of moving a bit under the convection now. That's really firing. The problem is it's firing northeast of the center and not over the center, which doesn't really help create pressure falls. This is kind of acting to draw in the center, though, through the lower convergence, which is going to draw that low into this area. But this looks like it's more shear enhanced, so it's likely not going to let Jerry intensify much, if at all. See, also here there's some kind of outflow type cloud here. You can see that's an obvious sign of that southwesterly shear that's keeping all this convection in this around here and displaced from the center. You can also see why there is that southwesterly shear. There's a very expansive kind of upper low / trough here that is creating that very dry air that I alluded to earlier when talking about Karen. See that there is that southwesterly fetch of upper level wind from the Bahamas into Jerry. So this is causing a lot of that southwesterly shear, and you can see the troughing kind of here as it turns more to the southeast kind of wind here, and then there's the kind of upper ridging, but not really in a good spot to help Jerry much at all, or if at all. See, the convection here is strong, but again, it's not going to really help the vortex spin up much. There's no real banding, and this is mildly displaced from the actual center, so that's not really a good look to strengthen. See here the National Hurricane Center forecast is expected to get caught by this short wave right here that's coming into the picture. this is going to come in more to the east, and then turn Jerry more to the or kick it out to the east once it gets a bit further north. So that will be likely happening tomorrow afternoon. You'll see it start to turn, and it looks like Bermuda might be under the gun right after it gets hit by Hurricane Umberto just earlier or last week. Luckily, this storm isn't going to be nearly as strong as Umberto. It's not likely to even be hurricane strength, and due to this shear that's likely going to continue, and possibly even dry air as well, you're not going to have a strong system out of this. It's too hostile right now. It is likely to pass close though, and that means there is a good chance of tropical storm force winds. That is, Jerry is expected to be tropical storm at this point. And also the center, it doesn't really matter as much this time, especially since it's very lopsided, which means it's more up to really where the convection sets up. You can have the center way up here, which is further from Bermuda, but if you have all the convection being suppressed to the southeast due to, say, northwesterly shear, you're going to get stronger winds under that convection. So the lopsided nature means that the actual center is less important for Bermuda impacts. But luckily, it doesn't look like they're looking at a very strong storm. It's just mostly very gusty, but not like Umberto. So you can see here it kind of slows down. There's a possibility it heads a bit south as an anticyclone sets up around here, and the trough doesn't really have as much of a hold on it. It might be a bit weaker than expected. Some guidance is hinting that the trough will indeed be a bit weaker in the forecast, but not significantly. It's not like you're going to have this curve back west. It's pretty high confidence that Jerry will end up moving eastward. So, yeah. Let's look at Lorenzo. So this was named just this afternoon and was designated as a tropical depression this morning. So you can see it's pretty well organized. It's probably the most well organized cyclone by far in the Atlantic Basin right now, because there's actual convection over the center and there isn't shear screaming over it and moving all the convection off the center or dry air. It's in a pretty good environment right now, which is surprising given how dry the main development region has been all year. This is a clear sign that that problem has really relaxed, and there's a lot more instability in this region now. There you can see that some of the convection is clearing out. It's partially due to the diurnal minimum, which tends to suppress convection, but you can see Lorenzo is getting stronger and is driving some of its own, or some convection from itself. So as it gets stronger, these diurnal cycles become less and less important as it becomes more self-reliant. Yeah, you can see that there's this huge band which is really having the most of this convection right now. This is in a pretty good spot for Lorenzo, because this is going to really moisten the air ahead of the center, so that there's less impediment to convection here. So you can even have dry air, even though there won't be. The relative humidity is pretty high, but you can have this dry air over here, but this will moisten it and allow for healthier kind of central convection. Right now there is no real inner core, at least, but you can see that there's a lot of healthy banding. Some here, some kind of coming in here, coming here, and then this big one in here. So in this kind of region. So eventually you're going to have, eventually as this strengthens, you're going to have the bands kind of wrap in, and eventually one is likely going to wrap around the center, and then that's how you get an eye wall. That's probably not going to happen until it can really strengthen and build that inner core. So we'll have to see what happens, but it's definitely not in a hostile environment. The shear is also low. It's expected to stay low. The relative humidity is going to be pretty good for a storm. So we'll have to see how fast it strengthens, and then we can go from there. So right now, in the next 5 days, Lorenzo has no real chance of significantly impacting land, so it's not a threat to pretty much anyone except maybe some gusty winds, if they haven't already occurred in the far southern Cabo Verde Islands. Otherwise, this is really mostly just impacting shipping interests and not really anyone on actual land. It's most likely that it will start to turn more to the north, reacting to a trough that's also expected to take Jerry and turn it eastward. So this is likely to turn it north and out of the main development region, where it's likely to just recurve. There's a possibility that the Azores Islands do see impacts from here, but it's really early. This is like 5 days away, so this is like at least 10 days away, so really it's way too early to be looking at any impacts up there. But otherwise, you're not looking at it's very likely you're not going to be looking at any land impacts in this part of in the western part of the basin, just because of how like this track is. It's pretty likely to curve before it really gets to this area. But we'll have to see how trends are, because there has been a trend for a bit of a weaker trough, which means it might not go as north. But given that it's September 23rd and that this is formed way out near Africa, the odds are very strongly in favor for this to get turned northeast and away from the western Atlantic by troughs, just because we're getting into a more fall-like pattern with the time of the year. And you can see here, given the favorable environment, it's likely to become in my opinion, it's pretty likely to become a major hurricane. It's referenced explicitly now in the forecast for the tropical cyclone, so it's likely that Lorenzo will get pretty strong, just because there isn't really too much impeding it. You're not getting that stable air that's really kept a lot of the activity down in this part of the basin. There was really nothing that actually formed here until Dorian, and even then it struggled until it was finally able to find a more favorable environment in southwest Atlantic, as you know what happened there. But yeah, the conditions just weren't favorable at the time in the main development region, and conditions did improve for Jerry while it was there, but even then it was still kind of meh. But you can see the conditions here have gotten much more favorable, as you can see, and it's likely to be a relatively strong storm. Anyway, that's about it for tonight. If you have any feedback, I'd appreciate it, as always, and thank you for watching.